So as part of subprograms, so in the last session we have discussed about, we are having two types of subprograms are available in Salesforce. One is procedures, second one is functions. And as part of procedures, we have two more subcategories, like as parameterized and then non-parameterized. And we have discussed about the non-parameterized procedures. How can we prepare the non-parameterized procedures? And then how can we write the business logic? How can we invoke? Okay. Now, sometimes I want to prepare the parameterized procedures. How to prepare the parameterized procedures? How to supply the values to my application at runtime as an input? We'll see practically with the help of parameterized procedure. Okay. Now let's see the parameterized procedures. So what exactly the parameterized procedures? Sometimes whenever we are going to be invoking the applications at runtime, I need to supply some input. Previously, simply we are calling the procedure without passing any input values, without supplying any input values. But sometimes I would like to supply the input also at runtime. Based on that input values, my application has to respond. Okay, like for example, I would like to have a search mechanism. Okay, I would like to have a search functionality. For example, I would like to search for some records based on the search text which has been given by sales user. For that, here I am giving a text box. Enter the search text. I am providing a text box, and then I am placing a button called as search button. I am placing a button control called as search button. So now after entering some characters inside the search text box, when the user click on search button, automatically it has to search for the records, and those resultant records has to be get visible inside my user interface in the table or format. I want to show the matching records or the search results, okay, in my user interface in the table or format. In this case, the user has to give some input value. What is that input value? Search text the user has to enter at runtime. Suppose, for example, if I am giving that input value like as some test, when I click on the search button, whatever the account records are available whose name is starting with the character some test, those records I want to display over here. Suppose, for example, if I am giving that input value like as some UN, 2 characters. When I click on the search button, based on these characters UN, whatever the account records are available, whose name is starting with the character some UN, those records has to be get visible over here. That means what? I need to supply some input to my application to be get search. Upon fetching the data, I want to give some input values. Based on these input values, my records has to be get searched, and the matching records has to be get visible in my user interface in the table or format. At that time, what value the user will enter in the text box, we don't know. Sometimes I'm entering like as apex, sometimes I'm entering the character some UN, sometimes I'm entering the value test, sometimes I'm entering a value some simply P, whatever the characters. We don't know what kind of input value the user will enter inside the text box, we don't know. At that time, whatever the input the user has entered, dynamically at runtime I want to collect that input. Based on that input value, I would like to search the records. So then how can we supply that input value to my procedure at runtime? Okay, for that one, we are using a feature called as parameterized procedures. Okay, parameterized procedures. By using parameterized procedures, we can supply some input value to the procedure at runtime. So based on that input value to perform some certain operations. Okay. For example, come to a general scenario. Assume that I am using math.mod function. Directly can I call like this? Directly can I call math.mod? Then what we need to do? We need to supply some input value 100 comma 2. Then only it will be giving the actual result to you. Suppose if I am giving like a simply math.mod, it will be giving that error message to you. Okay, incorrect method name or signature. Okay, that means what? With this name mod, we don't have any function or we don't have any method, okay, which is having that empty parameters. But it is expecting some two parameters over here with two input values we need to supply. So now these two input values are called as parameters. Parameter means what? Input. So now here I am giving the input to this particular method. This is the procedure that we have, mod procedure, which is going to be taking these two input values. Based on that, it is giving some response back to me. It is returning that value here. That is returning that reminder value to me over here. It is giving that reminder value to me. Suppose, for example, assume that I am using that data.new instance. Okay, data.new instance. Can I write like this directly? No. We have to pass some input values. How many? 3 parameters. What are those? We need to supply the year value, month value, date value. Okay, we need to supply 3 input parameters we have to give. So now based on this input value supplied by the user, the date will be getting prepared. The date value will be storing inside the variable here. That means what? We need to give some input value. Based on that input, we can able to perform some operations. Like the similar way, for example, I'm having the login screen. In that login screen, I haven't entered any text box value, username I haven't entered, password I haven't entered. When I click on login button, what will happen? Will it verify any credentials? No, because I haven't entered any credentials as of now. Then what credentials do I need to validate for me? In this case, it is showing the message, please enter username or password. Because here, we need the 2 input values. Please provide your username and password. Then only I can validate whether these credentials are valid or not. Now, for example, assume that I want to create an account record inside my account object. Click on new button. Now, can I click on save button directly now? No. Why? We need to supply some value. That means to create the account record, we have to give at least 1 input. What is that? Name. Without this input, my record cannot be acceptable. My record cannot be created. That means what? We need to give some input values to my application. Based on that, it is going to perform in the respective operations. So that like the similar way, here also we can able to perform that operations by giving some input values at runtime. So for that reason here what I want to do is, I want to prepare a procedure in such a way that procedure will receive some input values. Based on the input values, it will perform some operation. Based on the operation, it is producing some results to me here. If I am giving some different input values, different results will be getting produced. Instead of making that business logic static, we can make it as dynamic also. Okay, what are the business logic you are going to implement? Instead of making that business logic as static, we can make it as dynamic here. By giving the input values at runtime, by giving the different input values at runtime, we can able to get some different results. Okay, for one set of input, one different result. For another set of input, another result. So that we can able to get the different results also. The possibility is there. Okay. So that one, whenever we are going to be implementing the business logic, don't make that business logic hard-coded. Don't make that business logic as fixed one, nothing but static one. Make it as dynamic. So that we can able to use that business logic with the different purposes by passing some different input values. Okay. Now, for example here, previously we have created some account record, some hiring manager record here. But in this case here, I have created the hiring manager record by passing some values. But these values I have hard-coded here. If I am calling this procedure, then first time, one HR record will be getting created with the same details. If I am going to be calling the same method again, so one more time, it will create one more HR record with the same details. If I am calling this method one more time, one more record will be getting created with the same name. That means what? Multiple records will be getting created, but the values are same. The values are hard-coded. But I don't want to make these values are hard-coded. I want to pass these values at runtime. Depends upon the values are supplied. With those details, it has to create the record inside my object here. Okay? So with the different HR names, with the different locations, with a different contact number, email ID, PAN number, different I would like to supply. Based on the values which I have supplied, it has to perform those operations. So at that time, we can able to go with the procedures which are of type parameterized. Parameterized procedures are using for what? In order to create that procedures which will take some input values. Based on the input value, it will perform some operation inside this, so that we can make that business logic dynamic. Instead of making that business logic static, we can make it as dynamic here. Okay, clear? Now then, in this case, how can we prepare the parameterized procedure? What is the syntax? How many parameters we can supply? How to give the values at runtime? We'll see practically one by one. Okay, now so let's make a note of this one. By using this approach, we can supply the input values to the procedure. At runtime. Hence, we can make the business logic dynamic. That is, instead of hard coding the values for the variables, we can assign the values to the variables at runtime. Okay, now the syntax. We have to specify the access specifier. Use the keyword static optionally. Void and procedure name. Here inside that braces, you need to specify the parameters. How many parameters you are going to supply? We can define here. Depends upon your requirement, n number of parameters also we can supply. When you go to some programming, like as for example some Java, .NET, there they are having some limitation. For a procedure, we can pass 1024 input parameters, 1024 output parameters. There is a limitation. That means totally 2048 input parameters we can supply to a procedure in Java or .NET. But in Apex programming, we don't have such kind of limitation. N number of input parameters we can supply. Okay, now. So upon giving these input parameters, we have to indicate. Okay, So now what type of parameter you are going to supply? Okay, what type of parameter? What is the data type of that parameter? So that you have to specify the data type and the parameter name, like as some parameter 1. Second one, data type, parameter 2. Parameter 2. Data type, parameter 3. Like that here we can specify data type, parameter n. Okay, n number of parameters we can supply. The data type may be either a primitive type, it may be a subject type, it may be a collection type, it may be an Apex type, it may be user defined type. Any type of parameter we can supply. Okay, there is no limitations here. Any type of parameters we can supply, and n number of parameters also we can supply. Okay, now, So that means what? Whenever you are calling this procedure, these are the input values I need to supply. This is the first input parameter. Now this first input parameter is, this is the name of the parameter, this is the data type, this is the type of the value. As a second input, we have to supply the value. Third input value, like that up to n number of input parameters we can supply. Based on that, we need to write the business logic here. Okay. Now, let's see. For example, okay. For example, assume that here I'm preparing a class, public class, common helper class. Okay, I'm preparing a class with the name some common helper. Now, for example, now tell me, how can we write this one? I want to prepare a procedure which is used to receive some two input values of type integer, and then in that one I want to write some business logic to perform the addition operation. I want to create a procedure with the name addition which should receive two input values of type integer to perform the operation. Now tell me, how can we write the procedure now? Can you give me the syntax? Public, static, okay, void, give the procedure name addition. Next, then do we need to pass any parameters? Now how many? Two. Both will be of type what? Integer. Now tell me, how can we write that one? Integer. I'm giving the parameter name, for example, some x. Next, second parameter, integer y. Okay. Now here we can write the business logic here. Okay. Write the business logic. That's it. Simple concept. Okay. Now, you know how to prepare the procedure, but just now we are passing some two input values also at runtime. Now, I want to prepare one more procedure now. Okay, I want to prepare one more procedure. For example, I have a string with me. Okay, I have a string with me. In that string, okay, it will be having some characters. How many, I don't know. Because it may be a single word, it may be a sentence, it may be a paragraph. I'm having some word with me. Now I want to know how many characters are there available inside this. I would like to find out that. For that one here, if I'm passing this string to my procedure, it has to identify how many number of characters are available inside this. Okay. Now, I want to prepare the procedure now. How can we supply that string parameter here? Public static, void. Now, I'm giving the procedure name as get length. Okay, get length. Or else I would like to specify get string length. Now, I want to supply that string as a parameter. How to define that parameter now? String sum, yes. You can give any parameter name, whatever you want. Here you can write the business logic here to get the number of characters. Okay, to get the number of characters, whatever the business logic is required, we are writing inside that the method here. Here we need to write the business logic. Next, for example, assume that I'm having a record ID. Okay, I'm having an account record ID. Based on that ID, I want to get the account records information. Okay, with that ID, whatever the account record is available, I want to get the account record. How to pass the ID value here? Now, how to pass the ID? I'm giving the procedure name as get record. Now tell me here. ID, I'm indicating some record ID. You can give any parameter name, whatever you want. Now write the business logic inside this. Okay, write the business logic. Like that here, we can able to pass different types of parameters also. Sometimes, I would like to supply one HR record, complete HR record. Based on that HR record, it has to display, it has to create associated position record to me. Then what we can do? How to pass the complete HR record? Public static void, create related position. Now tell me, I want to pass that hiring manager record completely. How can we specify hiring underscore manager underscore underscore C, some HR. Okay, now we can supply that. Like this. Not only one parameter, multiple parameters also we can supply of type different types. Okay. So now upon preparing that procedure, we can give some input parameter values also. Depends upon the requirement here, we can able to give some different number of input parameters with the different types. It may be integer, it may be string, double, decimal, record IDs, list collection, anything, whatever the record IDs you want, you can supply all the things. Now, sometimes you can raise a question. Sir, for example, I'm having a collection of lead record IDs are there. I am having only IDs. I don't know the complete record information. If I'm passing the lead record IDs, then it has to return all the lead records to me here. Then what we can do? How can we supply the IDs? Public static void get lead records by ID. Then, how to supply the multiple IDs over here? By storing inside an array or not? Yes, how to define that array here? ID array, lead IDs. I'm giving like as some lead IDs. Okay. So now not only passing a single parameter, we can pass that array parameters also over here. Multiple lead record IDs we can supply. Now this method is going to be collecting the lead record details, and those lead records information will provide to you. Like that depends upon your requirement, we can able to pass the required input parameters also whatever you want. Okay. Clear? Now. So upon preparing the procedure, you have to prepare that respective input parameters. What type of input parameters you are going to supply, we can define that. Okay. Got the point here? How to prepare the procedure by passing some input parameters? Now, how to write the business logic we'll see. Okay. As of now, just we have discussed about the definition part. How to prepare the procedure which is accepting and some parameter values, input values. Okay. Now, so now here in this case here, once the parameters, nothing but once the procedures has been getting defined, which is of type parameters, and how can we access this one? How to invoke this procedure now generally? Forget about input parameters, forget about this one. This is the static method. How can we access the static method? Class name dot method name. Okay, class name dot method name. Okay, that's it. Simply we are going to be accepting, for example. Now let me take this piece of code. So now this is my class. So this is my class that we have. Inside this class here, I'm having a procedure which is having some parameters of type integer, x, integer, y. For example, I'm having one more procedure, public static void get length or get string length. I'm passing a string parameter. Yeah, I'm writing the business logic. Okay, write the business logic. Now, so now this is the class that we have. This is a class. Now I want to access this method here. Then what we can do? How can we access this method? By using class name dot method name. Now, how to access this one? Now let's see. I'm accessing the method here. Calling the method. How can we call the method? We have to specify the class name dot method name. My class name is common helper. Common helper dot addition. Can I call like this? Common helper dot addition. I'm using class name dot method name only. Then parameter. That means what? When you try to execute this code like this, it will be giving that message here. So now incorrect signature or method name. Okay? Incorrect method name or signature. That means here we don't have any method with the name addition without any parameters. But we have the method with the name addition which is expecting 2 input values. Without these 2 input values, we can't accept that one. Now then what needs to be done? We need to supply the value. How many values we need to supply? 2 values. Both will be of type what? Integer. How can we supply this one? Inside this addition, after this one, inside the braces, we have to supply the value. Now I'm passing the value 2300. Second value 600. I'm passing this both the values here. Okay, I'm passing both the values. In this case, what happened? Now it will verify. Upon executing this piece of code, it will verify inside my common helper class, do we have any method is available with the name addition, which is expecting 2 input parameters or not. It will go to the class, it will verify. Yes, there is a method is available here. Now it will be executing this one. Upon executing that here, what it will do is, whatever the 2 input values are available, whatever the 2300 value, and the 602 values are there. The first value will be passing to that, the first parameter. And the second value will be passing to that second parameter. That means what? X will be holding the value 2300 and then Y will be holding the value 600. Okay. Now, whatever the order we have defined the parameters, in the same order we have to supply the values over here. Okay, whatever the order we have defined the parameters here, in the same order we have to supply. Because here it will be mapping based on indexes. Here the index is 0. Here the index is 1. Here the index is 0. Here the index is 1. Both will be mapping over here. So 0 to 0 it will map. Okay, here the 0 and here the 1. Here the 0 and here the 1. So both will be mapping over here. Now 0 to 0 it will map the value and then 1 to 1 it will be mapping the value over here. Okay, so that here whatever the order we have specified that the parameters in the same order we have to supply the value. If you are changing the order, automatically syntax is wrong. It will give the error message to you, incorrect method name or signature. Okay, you will be getting that error message. So that here, so please take care of this one. Whenever you are using the parameterized the procedures, whatever the order we have defined the procedure, in the same order we have to supply the input values. Okay, clear? Now, in this case here, for example, now, assume that I'm having one more procedure is available over here. I'm having another procedure. I'm having a class, I'm having a procedure. Here I'm having 2 parameters are there. String yes, comma, integer y. Now tell me how can we call this procedure now. So this is my procedure. How to call this procedure now? Tell me the code. How can we call? Common helper dot addition. What we need to supply? String parameter. String should be enclosed in that single quote. I'm using welcome. Next, comma. Second value should be numerical value. I'm indicating like as some 2020. Okay, clear? Now, for example here, assume that I'm passing like this. What will happen? Is it valid or invalid here? Invalid. Okay. Now this is a valid statement. Because here, whatever the order we have defined the parameters, in the same order we have to supply the value upon calling. So now this is the definition and this is the calling of the procedure over here. Upon invoking the procedure, upon calling the procedure, we have to pass the input values in the same order which you have defined inside your procedure here. Okay? Clear? Now let's see here. Now make a note of this one. Make a note. Upon invoking the procedure, we have to supply the parameters. We have to supply the values for the parameters. We have to supply the values for the parameters. We need to supply the input values in the same order in which the procedure has been defined. The same order as the definition. As a definition. Okay. Upon invoking the procedure, we have to supply the values for the parameters. That is, we need to supply the input values in the same order as the definition. Your definition syntax and your invoking syntax both should be exactly similar. If you are changing the order, then it will be syntactical wrong. So it will be giving that runtime exceptions to you. Okay? No. It will be giving the compilation error, not a runtime error. Exception will be getting arised. Clear? Now, the syntax. We have to specify the object name dot procedure name. Here we need to supply the values here. Value 1, value 2, like that, value n. N number of values we need to supply. So as part of my syntax here, I am using that common helper dot addition. I need to supply the values here. 1000, 3450. Common helper dot get a string length. I am passing that value. Welcome to Apex programming. I am passing the string. In this string, how many number of the characters are available? I want to collect that. Common helper dot get a record. I'm passing the ID over here, like as 001 some value. Okay, record ID. I'm passing that record ID here, like that. So depends upon the requirement, we need to supply that the input parameter values for the procedures. Clear? Now. So now let's see how can we invoke these procedures. Okay, now let's see practically here. So now whenever we are preparing the parameterized procedures, upon defining the procedure, we have to specify what kind of input values you are going to supply, and you can define the parameters. N number of parameters we can supply by separating a comma. And the next one, upon invoking the procedure, we have to supply the values for those parameters. Okay, clear? Now, these are the two simple steps, nothing else. Now, let's see a practical example on this one. How can we prepare these parameterized procedures? Okay, now, because the complete business logic we are writing in terms of classes, procedures, parameterized procedures. That's it. If you know this part perfectly, then remaining development concept is very, very simple. Okay, now, because the complete business logic we are writing inside the procedures only. That too mainly static procedures we are using here, especially. Because it doesn't require any object, so no need to allocate the memory for the object also, so we can save the memory as well. Now, so let's take a small example on this one. Take a small use case. Write an Apex class to perform the addition and division operations on the given input values. Depends upon the input values which has been given by the user at runtime. On those input values I want to perform addition and the division. I want two separate procedures here. For addition separate, division separate. Two procedures I want. Okay? Now tell me how can we implement this one here. Done with this use case? Now tell me how can we define this one. First of all, we have to create a class. In that class, prepare a procedure, okay, and then specify the required input parameters. Upon calling that, supply the values over here. Okay. Now, so let me go to the developer console. I'm preparing a class. I'm creating an Apex class because the math operations class or math operations helper. So I'm creating the class with the name math operations helper. Now inside this I would like to provide the two procedures. One is to perform the addition, second one is to perform division. Now tell me how can we define. Public, static void, then give the name. Any name we can provide. Addition. Here what needs to be done? I need to supply two input values. Both will be of type what? Numerical. So that I am using integer. Integer x comma integer y. Okay, now. So now in this case here, once the procedure has been getting defined, what you want to do? Suppose for example I am passing two values over here. Now for this x parameter I am passing the value some 100, and for this y parameter I am passing the value some 40. Okay. Now what needs to be done here? I want to perform the addition of these two values. Then how can we perform the addition of these two values? Okay. Now x is having that value 100, y is having the value 40. How can we do the addition operation? X plus y. That's it. Simple. Okay. Now. So now here I am displaying that message here. System.debug addition result is I want to display. How can we get that x and y value? X parameter is available, y parameter is available. At runtime, the user will be passing the value for the x and the y. Those values will be coming over here, and then we are performing the addition operation on these values. We can show the result over here. Okay? Clear? Now, let's save this one. Like the similar way, I want to perform division operation. How to write the code? Public static void division. Now, how many parameters? Two parameters, integer x, integer y. Now, what needs to be done? System.debug x by y. Suppose if the y value is 0, then it will throw the exception, right? Then how we need to handle those exceptions also, right? Yes. For that one, what needs to be done? If the y value greater than 0, then I want to perform that operation. System.debug division result is I want to perform x by y. Else, what needs to be done? I want to show the message here. Division operation cannot be performed. As the second number value is 0. Okay, I'm writing the business logic here. So based on that input values, we can able to write that piece of code. Okay, so now in this case, I'm defining a procedure with the name division, which will be accepting two integer parameters over here. Okay, which will be accepting two integer parameters, x and y. So now depends upon the input values which we have supplied. Okay, depends upon the input values which we have supplied. I would like to perform the operation on this here. If the x value, if the y value is greater than 0, then I am going to be performing the division operation, or else I want to show the message division operation cannot be performed as the second number value is 0. Clear? Understood the concept here? Now. So let me save this class code. Now, once the class code is ready, then how can we invoke this class code? How can we invoke these procedures? These are the two procedures we have prepared right now. One is addition procedure, second one is division procedure here. How can we invoke these two? How can we invoke these two? How to call this addition procedure? This is what type of procedure? It is a static. How to access? By using class name dot method name. But in this case, what it is expecting? Two input values of type integer. So we need to supply two numerical values by separating a comma. Okay. Now, so let me execute that by using execute anonymous window. Now my class name is math operations helper. Okay, math operations helper. Let's go to the execute anonymous window. Math operations helper dot, what is that method name? Addition method here. Okay, addition. How many input values to supply? Two input values, x and y. Both will be of type integer. That's what here upon typing the class name dot, you will be getting the method name. Both will be indicating that they are expecting two input type of parameters over here. Okay, these two are my own methods which we have prepared right now. Addition, division, we have prepared our methods here. Like the similar way, okay, how many parameters you need to supply if you want to know, then simply, for example, if I'm going with that some math dot, okay, now it is indicating that. How many parameters you have to supply for this one? One parameter of type decimal. For this one, double type of parameter. For this one, integer type of. For this one, long type of parameters, like that. Suppose if I am having some math.mod, how many parameters we can supply here? Now, two parameters, either integer type or long type here. Both are numerical. Okay, both are numerical. That should not be decimal, that should not be double. Okay, now. So now here, like the similar way, just we can look into that particular syntax itself to understand how many parameters we need to supply. Okay, now. Suppose here, if you need to get some clarification, suppose for example, if you are unable to see those methods here, if you want to know what methods are available, what is the syntax, then simply we can go to the Google and we can able to search for that Salesforce documentation also. In Salesforce documentation, we can see now math class in Salesforce. So now you will be having that math class in Salesforce. As part of Apex development guide, you will be having the math class. In this math class, we can see what methods are available, their syntaxes and everything we'll see. Now, so this is the math class. It contains some methods to perform the mathematical operations here. Okay, now. So now here in this case here, we are having so many methods. The math class and methods are available. Absolute method, we can pass one decimal parameters. That means it returns the absolute value of the specified decimal number. They're indicating the description. Suppose if you want to know what is the syntax over here, exact syntax, just to click on this one here. Okay, just to click on this one, we can see the syntax here. Now, ABS of decimal. It returns the absolute value of the specified decimal. The syntax is a static method. Okay, this is a static method, which will be returning a decimal value over here. Now, static method. So this is the decimal method. So now this is available in which class? Math class. How can we access this static method? Math.abs method. Okay. Now this is the method name ABS. The return type is decimal, and which is a static method. So that here we are going to be calling by using math.abs. Okay. If you want to use that mod function, then you can go to the math.mod. Here you will be having that mod function. Let's see. Now we are having that mod function. Okay, now just to click on this mod, you can see the syntax over here. Math.mod. We need to supply the two input parameters of type integer here. This is also a static function. So now where we are going to be calling it as here math.mod of 12, 2. We can able to access this one. So now you can able to get the remainder value over here. Suppose if I am passing math.mod of 8, 3, then here it will be complete dividing by 2 times over here. You will be having the remainder value as 2. Okay. Now so that it is giving the remainder value as 2. So that we can able to see the syntax also. These are all our static methods. Okay. These are all our static methods. Everything inside the documentation, we can see each and every functionality also as part of your Salesforce documentation. Okay. As part of the Salesforce documentation, everything we can able to see. Like the similar way yesterday we have discussed about a class called as single email message class. We can specify single email message class. Okay, single email message class. Now, it is indicating that single email message class methods. Now, just to click on this one, we can able to see. The single email class and methods are available. Like you know that here. You are having the various methods. Set a CC addresses, and then set a file attachments, set a HTML body, set a reply to, and then set a plain text body, and then set a subject, and then we can use set a two addresses, and then we are having set what ID. All this information is available to you. Okay, so we can able to see the whole information, the detailed information, description, everything is available to you over here inside your Salesforce documentation. Every class also we can able to see. Okay, all the functionalities are available to you inside this. Date class. Inside the date class, what methods are available? Just to click on date class. So you can be able to see all the methods here. Okay, these are the methods are available. Add days, add months, add years, day of year, like that. Everything we can able to access that methods here. Now, so that here each and every functionality we can able to get into the documentation by using that Salesforce documentation guide. Okay, from the Google here. Okay, developer.salesforce.com. From there, we can able to get all the information over here. Okay. Now, if you are facing any difficulty to understand, then just you can refer that documentation which has been given by Salesforce. For every new release, Salesforce is keep on updating the documentation. Okay, because for every new release, Salesforce is adding some additional functions, additional methods, additional classes, additional features. The whole information they are updating inside that documentation also. From there, we can refer that information as well. Okay, now clear? Now, so now tell me how can we invoke these two methods here? I want to access that method addition. For that one here, I am going to be calling the method math operations helper dot addition. Here we need to supply two input parameters. I'm passing that 1000 comma 3400. Okay. Now I'm calling this method. Click on execute button. Now this method will be getting invoked, and then we can see the result of this method. Select the debug only checkbox. Now we are able to see the results. Addition result is 4400. Like we have given the first number value as, okay, the 1000, second number value as 3400. So both are, whenever you are doing the addition, it will be indicating 4400. Suppose, for example, I want to perform the addition of two different values. Math operations helper dot addition. I'm giving the two values here. I'm giving some values. Now I want to do the addition of these two. Only this particular statement I want to execute over here. Now click on execute highlighted. We can send the request and see the response also. Select the debug only checkbox. Now it is indicating the result will be getting visible to you. Okay. Whatever the result is available, you can see the result also inside your debug log statement. Okay. So like that here we can able to perform the operations on the required input values, and we can able to see the results also. Okay. Suppose, for example, I want to call the second function here. Math operations helper dot division. I'm passing the value. So now 1000 comma 35. So I'm calling this only this procedure here. I want to call only this particular procedure. Select that execute highlighted statement. Now let's see the result. Now I'm able to see the result of this operation. Division operation has been performed. Division result is 28. Suppose, for example, here if I'm calling that similar method by passing some different values. Here I'm indicating 3500 and the second number value as 0. What will happen in this case now? It will raise error message or what? It will show that message statement. So now in this case, runtime exception will not be getting arise because we have handled the exception over here. How we have verified that if the fy value is greater than 0, then perform that, or else show the message here. Okay, now click on execute highlighted. Request has been sent to the server, and we can see the result. Now it has to show the message division operation cannot be performed because the second number value equals to 0. Okay, clear? This is how we are going to preparing the parameterized procedures so that we can pass some input values at runtime and we can able to make our functionality dynamic. Okay, clear? Now let me place the code. Make a note of this program. Have you already done with this class? Done? Can I go with another example? Okay. Now, let's take one more small use case. Now, so now let me explain this requirement here. Okay, you have to write this piece of code. So as of now, we have prepared an example to create that hiring manager record, hiring manager utility. So now in this hiring manager utility class, we have prepared a method called as create HR record. Here what we did is, we are hard coding this name value, location value, contact number, email ID, and the PAN number. All these values we have hard coded. But now my requirement is, I want to pass these values dynamically at runtime by using the parameterized procedure. That means for this particular procedure, I would like to add the parameters here, and these values I would like to supply at runtime. Then how can we do this one? How many parameters we need to add it over here? 5 parameters. All will be of type what? String type. Because these are all are of type string. So now once the parameter is available, those values we need to supply in this particular place. Nothing but instead of hard coding the value, replace that parameter name in this particular place over here. That's it. Okay. Now let's see how can we implement this functionality now. So let's make a note of this use case. So write an Apex program to insert the hiring manager record in the object by supplying the field values at runtime. By supplying the field values at runtime. I want to supply these values at runtime. Based on that input values which I have supplied, it has to create the record inside my object. Suppose second time upon calling that same procedure second time, if I am passing some different values, then it has to create the record with the different values. Now tell me, it's your turn now. Now tell me here, how can we write this piece of code? First of all, we have to create the class. Okay, now. Done with this use case? Now, let me create the class first. I am creating an Apex class, hiring manager utility. Hiring manager service, for example. Hiring manager class. Now, I have prepared a class with the name hiring manager class. This is my class name. Now I need to prepare what? Procedure. What is the procedure name now? Tell me. Public, static, void. I am creating that procedure with the name create HR record. Now, how many parameters we need to supply now over here? 5 parameters. Now tell me. String, I'm indicating some HR name. String, HR city. String, HR phone. String, HR email. String, HR PAN. Okay, PAN number. These are the 5 parameters here. Do I need to supply ID? No, ID will be generating by Salesforce. Once I'm creating the record, then ID will be generating by Salesforce itself. So I'm preparing the procedure with the 5 parameters of type string. First one is HR name, second one HR city, third one phone, fourth one email, fifth one HR PAN. Okay, here's the PAN number field value. So now once the parameters has been getting defined, then what we need to do? These parameters values we need to supply to that fields of your record here. Now, how can we do this one? Create the object of that hiring manager class. Hiring manager, some HR equals to new hiring manager. I'm creating the object of the class. Once the object has been getting defined, we are going to be supplying the value for each and every field inside my HR record. So that I'm indicating HR dot name. Previously, we are hard coding the value like as some Ram Kumar. Now the value is coming from where now? Parameter here. This is coming from where? HR name parameter here. So now here I want to indicate simply HR name. That's it. Okay. Whatever the name value you are supplying to this procedure, upon calling, that value will be placing over here inside this. Next, HR dot location. So what is the parameter name? HR city. HR dot email ID. What is the parameter? HR email. HR dot contact number. I'm passing HR phone. HR dot PAN number. I'm indicating HR PAN. After that, once the values has been getting supplied, that means what? I'm supplying the value for each and every field. But here I'm not hard coding the value. Previously we have hard coded the value, but now I'm passing the value at runtime. Okay, to my procedure, whatever the values you have supplied, I'm placing inside my field so that I can create that record. Insert HR. I want to show the message. If the HR record dot ID not equals to null, I want to show the message. System.debug hiring manager record ID is, I want to show that HR.ID. That's it. So now this procedure we have made it as dynamic. Depends upon the values which we have supplied, that particular values will be getting placing inside the fields. It will be creating the new record inside your object. Clear? Done? Now. So now tell me, how can we call this procedure now? So I'm calling this procedure hiring manager class dot create HR record. Now, upon calling this procedure, we need to supply the input parameters. So how many parameters we need to supply? 5. Okay, HR name and the city and the phone, email ID and the PAN number. Now, can it change the other upon supplying the value? No, it should not accept that. Okay. For that one here, we are having that specific values are available. So we have to pass in the same order. First of all, we have to pass HR name. I need to pass that HR name because the first parameter is name parameter. So I'm passing that. Like as I'm indicating like as some Suman or some Sachin Kumar. Now the second one is city. I'm indicating like as some Hyderabad. Next, the third one phone. And the fourth one email. Sachin@some gmail.com. And the PAN number. I'm supplying the values. Whatever the order is available, in the same order, we need to supply the input parameters here. Okay. In the same order, we have to supply. In this case, what will happen? Now, whenever I'm going to be calling this a procedure, okay, whenever I'm calling this procedure, now the Sachin Kumar, this name will be passing to that name field, HR name field. From this one, it will be passing to that parameter here. Okay. Now, the second value will be passing to that city. This value will be placing inside that location column. Third one, phone number. Phone number is passing to this particular parameter. This value will be storing inside that the phone field. And the fourth one is email ID. This value will be storing inside that email ID column. Like that here, whatever the values we have supplied, these values are storing inside the respective parameter values. From there, we are going to pass into that fields inside your object. Okay? Clear? Now. So now let me execute this piece of code. Before that, let me verify how many HR records are available inside my object. Get the records. These are the records are available. Starting with the character sum, yes, let me verify. We are having the records are available. Sachin Pandey, like that we are having Sampath Kumar, like that we are having some record. Totally 10 are there. Whose name is starting with the character sum, yes. Now here I am going to be executing this piece of code. I am creating the record with the name some Sachin Kumar. Click on execute. The request has been sent to the server. It will be creating the record. Let's refresh this user interface. You can see that Sachin Kumar record has been created successfully. What are the phone number and then email ID and the location and the PAN number we have supplied. With those details, it has created the record inside my object here. Okay? Clear? Understood the concept here, how to prepare parameterized procedures and how to supply the value for the parameters. Okay? Now. So let me place this code. Next one. Make a note of some assignments here. Write an Apex program to insert the account record into the object by using the parameterized procedure. Okay. Write an Apex program to insert the account record into the object by using the parameterized procedure. Like the similar way, we have to write the piece of code to create that account record. Next one. Write an Apex program to insert the case record into the object by using parameterized procedures. Okay. So try these two assignments today. Tomorrow we'll see some more features as part of this. Tomorrow I'm going to start the concept of collections. Okay. We'll see what exactly the collection, what is the use, and what kind of collections are available in Apex programming, and how to use each and every collection class. We'll see practically one by one.